All right. Hey, KCarl, we are live on Facebook. I am so excited to talk to you. How are you doing?
I'm doing exceptionally well. How you doing on this Columbus Day?
Doing great. It's actually also Canadian Thanksgiving today.
Okay,
So after my Zoom with you, we're going to actually celebrate Canadian Thanksgiving because my husband's Canadian.
that's right. I remember that. Tell
So,
him I said hello.
but look, you are at your son's football game. This is how busy you are and how awesome you are to be pulling double duty to do this live Zoom with me and be present for your son. Thank you so much.
Well, you know what we're going to talk about is really important, and so of course, being time quality time, with my son is important too. But you got to balance that because I want to make sure that his future is full of liberty, like what we have right now. So I got to do what I have to do. So thank you for inviting me to be on this call with you.
Thank you. And so I'm going to start with a little mini bio because there's a lot of people who may not know who you are.
Yeah.
KCarl Smith, you are the nation's #1 diversity engagement strategist, and you are the creator of the Frederick Douglass Republican Engagement Strategy. And you have empowered and coached thousands of white, Black, Latino, conservative men and women to trump the race card used against them. You are a retired U.S. Army officer. Thank you for your
Cool.
this.
Cool.
And you are a best-selling author of Frederick Douglass Republicans, the Movement to Reignite America's Passion for Liberty, which we're going to talk a lot about.
Okay.
And you were featured in Reverend C.L. Bryant's Runaway Slave documentary, and you have appeared on the 700 Club, the Blaze TV, and Fox News's Huckabee Show. But your most important job is dad to 3 kiddos and grandpa to 7 grandchildren. So thank you again for being here. So let's jump right in because I know we have limited time. And
Yeah.
I want to start with in the back of your book, a quote that you've written. By the way, we need everybody to get this book. Okay. It says, who are Frederick Douglass Republicans? Frederick Douglass Republicans are people who are not afraid to stand up for their beliefs and convictions. We will support only those politicians who make the plight of the poor a legislative priority, agreeing with Douglass's life-empowering values: respect for the Constitution, respect for life, belief in limited government, and belief in personal responsibility. Frederick Douglass Republicans are everyday citizens of this great nation who take pride in what it means to be an American, Douglass's life-empowering values. Frederick Douglass Republicans will fight for justice and liberty and are not satisfied with the status quo.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, actually, that right there was written by a former Democrat friend of mine who's now is a Frederick Douglass Republican. She wrote that because after having this conversation, have this Frederick Douglass Republican awakening, she was inspired to write that, and we put it in the book. Staunch Democrat. She was a staunch Democrat, NAACP kind of person. She's now as a Frederick Douglass Republican in lieu of using the word conservative.
You know, it's funny when we talk about the NAACP because that was started under Republican individuals. During Frederick Douglass's time, it was like an extension of the work that he was doing. But let's get right into it. You want to start with the 4 values? Is that where you want to start?
Sure, sure. I'm going to talk about the book. Let's get into the values. Now, that book is not a political dissertation on the political thoughts of Douglass. What it is, it's a conservative action handbook. It's a book that gives you help you develop the skill, the confidence, and the knowledge to engage anyone regarding your conservative values. In essence, it teaches you or empowers you how to trump the race card, pun intended. So a Frederick Douglass Republican, to become a Frederick Douglass Republican is not based on your skin color. It's all about values. If you embrace what we call the life empowering values of Frederick Douglass, and there's more than 4, let me cover a few of them. Respect for the U.S. Constitution, respect for life, the belief in the limited power of government, economic prosperity, free speech, school choice, women's rights, legal immigration, the right to keep and bear arms. There's religious liberty, economic prosperity. These what we call life empowering values, and Douglas wrote about each of these values. So they are conservative values, but in terms of when it comes to engaging, since that word conservative has a racist connotation because of the negative propaganda put on by the left, we call them life empowering values, and that's what resonates with people because that's what they are, life empowering values. So a Frederick Douglass Republican is not based on color, it's based on values.
So you gave a very interesting story in the beginning of your book about how you had a revelation. Do you want to
Mhm.
touch on that a little bit about your personal journey of becoming a Frederick Douglass Republican?
Yeah, I grew up in Alabama. I'm a native of Pine Bluff, Arkansas, but I grew up in Alabama from age 5 till I finished college. But I grew up in a very staunch Christian and Democrat home. I was a Democrat based on tradition. And so basically, what I talked about in my book, I had an awakening. It was a spiritual awakening for me. One night, I was reading 2 Corinthians 13 and 5, and I cannot tell you how many times I read those scriptures over the years, but that night, reading those scriptures hit me in a way where I started thinking about the way I was voting. 2 Corinthians 13 and 5 in the Message translation goes along these lines. It says, examine yourself, make sure you're solid in faith. Don't go along taking things for granted. Test yourself. You need firsthand evidence that Jesus Christ is in you. If you fail the test, do something about it. So several years ago, I started testing the way I was voting. And I realized I was voting the opposite of my faith. I was voting the opposite of my worship. On Sunday, I was raising holding hands because I don't believe in abortion. I don't believe in same-sex marriage, but I was voting for a party and candidates that espouse that because I was voting based on not based on values, but based on tradition. So I realized that I couldn't continue to be a Christian chump. I need to be a Christian champion and start voting my values, regardless of party affiliation. Because I've learned over the years, it's really not voting for the Democrat donkey. It's not a voting for the Republican elephant. It's about voting for the Lion of Judah. It's about voting your values without compromise. So that's why I had to put myself in check on it. And I'm telling you that self-examination was the toughest thing I ever did in my life because when I had that spiritual awakening, I went through 3 days of solid depression. Think about a house for 3 days because all the things I had believed to be true all my life, I found out was a lie. And when you realize that the things you defended all your life was a lie, that's nothing but depression. And it set me down for 3 days.
Wow. So let's talk about right now we've got a lot of conversation around the Constitution. You know, the president has nominated a new Supreme Court justice, but what did Frederick Douglass have to say about respect for the Constitution?
This is something that really woke me up where Douglas started turning my thinking right side up. I'm a graduate of a historical black college, Alabama A&M University, located in Huntsville, Alabama. I was taught in college that the Constitution was a pro-slavery document. I was also taught in college by my professors that in the Constitution, where it talks about the three-fifth clause, that the three-fifth clause meant that blacks were three-fifths of a human being. It wasn't until I got into the writings of Frederick Douglass where he turned my thinking right side up. It didn't happen in college. I'll talk about after I retired from the military when I had this awakening about Douglass's writings. Douglass said basically he said the Constitution is not a pro-slavery document. It is an anti-slavery document. And then Douglass went on to talk about the three-fifth clause. And what he said was that woke me up was he said the three-fifth clause was a compromise used by the northern free states upon the southern slave states, because the southern slave states wanted to count every black person in slavery as one person, one vote. And since we're trying to get this constitution ratified, the northern free states said, okay, we'll let you count of them as three-fifths of a vote, not as a whole vote. In which what happened was that limit the congressional representation of the slave states in Congress. So when I read that, I said, oh my gosh. I said, what else have I been misled about? So I became obsessed with the writings of Frederick Douglass. This is about 15 years ago. I read everything he wrote. I read his 3 autobiographies. I read his novel. I read every biography ever written about the guy. I read Yale University Press has a collection of Douglas's writing called the Douglas Papers, about 4 volumes. I read that. I mean, I became obsessed with it. And then uh, I started to understand the importance of liberty, how to defend liberty, because when you think about it, Frederick Douglass is America's greatest liberty messenger. If we're serious about defending liberty and the Constitution, we must integrate the thoughts, writings of Frederick Douglass into our message, so it can resonate with people. Because then you leverage a guy who's a former slave, talk about his love for liberty, his love for his God-given rights. That's why Douglass is so key. So we should be thankful that we have this literary legacy of Douglass to refute the lies and the false rhetoric of the left when it comes to the Constitution, free speech, immigration, the things Douglass wrote about.
So another topic that's been in the news is this idea of abortion, because that's,
Mm.
the concern about Roe v. Wade being reversed. But, Frederick Douglass talked in general about respect for life. Can you
Yeah.
touch a little bit on his thoughts on that?
Abortion wasn't the topic of the day back then, but when you read Douglass's writings, um, his love for life, I'm talking about from the womb to the tomb. So what has happened, why Douglass is so key when it comes to messaging, when you take a look at the things that the Marxists, the left, are doing, it's no different than what the slave master did to the slave. The slave master took rights away from the individual. The slave master didn't have respect for life. The slave master could indiscriminately go out and kill one of the slaves without giving a thought or get even or brought up on charges. So that's why reading the writings of Douglass is so important, because there's really nothing new under the sun. What happened in Douglass's time, how he was under the hand of tyrants, about the slave masters, we're doing the same thing today. Only thing is, our slave master is a slave government, and the left is trying to make us bow to the altar of the almighty government. Same thing.
This is a great segue into talking about limited government. So you and I have had a conversation about opportunity zones, and you call it, this is our 40 acres and a mule plus interest. Like you have been able to have these conversations and have personal experience with opportunity zones. Can you share a little bit more about what you're doing with that?
A lot of people say that President Trump is, yeah, I heard somebody say one time, some of my friends would call me, that President Trump is a racist. Well, a racist is not going to do anything to help the people he's supposed to be racist towards, okay? That ain't going to happen. So one thing this administration has done, he has passed this legislation called Opportunity Zone that was sponsored by Tim Scott. The Opportunity Zone is a program where if you have some economically depressed real estate in a certain area that's under the Opportunity Zone, you can then go to investors with your business plan, and they can invest in that endeavor and receive tax credits. Well, that's something I personally took advantage of. My brothers and I, we just purchased 105 acres of land that's located in an Opportunity Zone here in Birmingham, Alabama. And on that land is a 65,000 square foot facility. I'm now traveling the country raising the money. We're going to take that 65,000 square foot facility. We're going to start a Frederick Douglass STEAM Academy that also feature the Frederick Douglass Liberty Curriculum, where we're going to inspire and train the next generation of Frederick Douglass Liberty ambassadors. So with science, technology, engineering, arts and math, as well as the Frederick Douglass Liberty Curriculum. And because the most effective counter message to Marxism is Frederick Douglassism. And our young people need to know about this, because this fight is going to continue after you and I are long and gone. They got to know how to fight and win.
So this is another great segue into the conversation around school choice, because this is a hot topic in public education, is school choice. But what are you hearing when you're talking with specifically like Black families and Black parents, and what have you seen is an argument in favor? Because I've been a public school teacher my entire life, and so I'm really intrigued by this conversation.
I do travel the country a lot, and I talk to a lot of people about the issue of school choice. And my thing is this: whether it's a private school or public school, all of them should be excellent. we shouldn't be into this issue of school choice, but that's what we're dealing with. So it is a situation where people realize this is not a dress rehearsal when it comes to the education of your child. You get one opportunity to get it right. And so they want the best for the child. So I'm in talk people, the Black community, they want school choice. But here's something that I've been concerned about, Priscilla, is that when it comes to school choice, there are some students who never get out, who are still left behind. So what we're doing with our school, it won't be a charter school, it will be a private Christian school, but we're focusing on students who are on the trajectory of dropping out. We want failing students in our school, and we want to bring them up. The talented students, they're gonna make it. They're gonna make it by. But those who are getting straight Fs, who are getting Ds, who are failing, who for some reason are being labeled as for special ed, those are the ones who really get left behind, and those who are we're recruiting for our school. And that's our heart, because if we can improve their lives, everybody else's lives will also be elevated. But parents want this. We haven't even started the school year. We already have a waiting list over 200 students, and we haven't really broke ground yet. We just purchased the land 2 weeks ago. So, but yeah, school choice. Somebody told me school choice is a civil rights issue of our time, without a doubt, because the way you escape poverty, the way you escape, like Duck escaped slavery, it was through education. Education is the escape route from poverty and slavery. And we got to make sure all American children have the opportunity to and have access to a quality education, not indoctrination, but education where they're taught to be critical thinkers. So one of my brothers is a PhD physicist. He's a former NASA scientist. So that's why we're going to focus on STEM. But the really focus is really not to get our focus, not to get kids involved in STEM in terms of science careers. If they choose to do that, that's fine. Our ultimate goal is to teach the children on how to apply the scientific method to their life, how to become critical thinkers. That's our goal.
That's amazing. Let's switch over to higher ed. So in the Platinum Plan, so I was outdoor knocking this past weekend in the Montbello area of Denver, which we have a lot of Black and Latino families in the far northeast of Denver. And I talked to several Black families who really had no idea what the Trump administration has done in the last 4 years around opportunity zones, around funding for HBCUs, around scholarships for Washington, D.C.
You know why? You know why?
You know why?
Yeah. Because their Democrat representatives is not telling them about it. Their Democrat representatives don't want to work with President Trump. So, pardon my French, damn their constituents. It's all about power and money for them. They don't want. Lo and behold, if President Trump or Republican gets the credit that they're doing something positive to improve the lives of Black folks, it's over with for the Democrats. So that's why. But yeah, go ahead. But you're right.
So one of the things we had talked about too, and I want you to expand a little bit more on, is how the history of presidents of HBCUs coming and asking for federal funding, and what recently took place. And before you do that, I do want to add that I just learned that in 2018, this administration forgave the loans of 4 HBCUs that had received loans because of Katrina. So we forgave over almost $322 million that HBCUs will no longer have the burden of having to repay because of this administration. But educate us on what happened with HBCUs and their request for funding.
Right. And this came out of the mouth of the president last month when he revealed the Platinum Plan. Those of us who are a member of the advisory board, we were in Atlanta for that unveiling. And President Trump told a story about when he took office in January, the first year he took office, after he took office, a contingent of 42 HBCU presidents came to see him. He met with them They shook hands, and they said, "Okay, why are you here?" So we need funding. So he gave them funding. Then the president went on to say, the following January they came back, and the president said, "Well, why are you coming back?" He said, "Because we need funding." He said, "Okay, I'll give you some more funding." So the third year in January, the 42 contingent of HBCU president came to see the president a third time. President Trump said, "Wait a minute, why you guys keep coming back for this funding?" He said, "We have to come back every year to ask for funding." He said, "Let's stop this." So President Trump, um, what he did was he made the funding to the HBCUs permanent for 10 years. For 10 years. Obama didn't do that. Obama had those presidents come to see him every year for 8 years, begging for money. President Trump said, "You don't need to come back and beg for money to me." He said, "Look, I love to see you, but look, I'm gonna make your funding permanent for the next 10 years. A racist wouldn't do that." And that's exactly what he did. And a lot of Black folks don't know that that story. That story tells me a lot about the character of this man. A lot.
That's amazing. And this is why it's important for us to educate the community about what's happening on a federal level. I think it's important so that people also know how they can benefit from the decisions that are being made at the federal level. So, so not only did he make that funding permanent, but we know that he has actually allocated more money.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a very good point. You know, with all the policies that's in place, as Black Americans, we got to be in position to take advantage of it. You got, so one of the stumbling blocks, what I see with those who don't take advantage of the opportunity zone, really is putting that business plan together. And this is why I say the opportunity zone is our 40 acres and a mule with interest, because there has been no president in this country that has made this kind of money available to the common person. That has never happened. This is the first time when the money's really on the street. You just got to have the vision, you got to have the plan, and you put it together. And here's something my dad always told me in terms of our plight as Black Americans. He said, "Son, our ancestors fought for our freedom. They died for our freedom." He said, "Son, we are as free as we're going to be. The rest of it, we got to buy." And that's so true. It's about economic prosperity. And so we got to not just look for jobs, we got to create jobs. That's what's needed in our community. That's what's needed in this country, not just our community. And that's one thing we're gonna do with these young people. We're gonna get them to become critical thinkers, tap into their God-given gifts, and help them take their obsession and make it a profession, be it an entrepreneurship or be an employee somewhere. So, and Frederick Douglass is the answer, and lays out the action plan how to do that. Because a lot of people don't know, Priscilla, that they know that Douglass was a slave, but they don't know when Douglass passed away in 1895, he had $300,000 in savings. That's more than $10 million today. That's not bad for a guy who was a slave for 20 years. So that's why Douglass is such to me, a powerful patriotic icon, because no matter which victim category that the left try to put people in, no American today can out-victimize Frederick Douglass.
So yeah, he taught himself how to read just by knowing the alphabet, and he became the advisor to 5 US presidents. This is someone born a slave. So you're right. Like, what excuses do we have? We're as free as we've ever been in the United States at this given time. And so there's no room for victimizing ourselves as a community.
That's right. That's right. It's all about application. Well, opportunity, you gotta have opportunity. Then once you have opportunity, you gotta apply yourself. That's where we're lacking. I had a discussion with some friends of mine, some Black conservative friend of mine, and I was telling them in our discussion, I said, look, we need to quit saying that Black folks on a plantation. We're not on a plantation. We won that fight back in the 19th century. I said, we're standing in the midst of liberty, making bad decisions. That's where we are. When it comes to education, we don't take it seriously in terms of many of us as the common thread. We don't respect our lives of our child in the womb. So we're putting curses on our own lives by our lack of making good decisions. So we're not on a plantation. We're free people. We're free. I
I'm
mean,
free.
I, yeah, gotta make good decisions and take education, take life seriously.
So one of the things that's tied into education is this topic of criminal justice. Like, so
Mm,
right now, the big topic is, criminal
mm,
justice reform. The BLM movement has highlighted this conversation, and a lot of Black folk don't know that
right.
President Trump has reformed the criminal justice system. Can you touch on that a little bit too?
And that's a shame because again, in the Black community, there are Black Democratic representatives at the state level, at the federal level, at the county level, are not letting their constituents know the truth what President Trump has done. You're right. It wasn't President Obama that reformed the criminal justice system. It was President Trump. Let's give the man some credit. And it was Joe Biden who sponsored the massive incarceration bill. You know, when Hillary was running for the presidency, she came out and Bill came out, they apologized for it. Biden said he wasn't going to apologize, but he's the one who sponsored the bill. A lot of folks don't know that. But when you tell them that and you do it in a way where you're not being condescending with them and you have control of the narrative, they get it. What I've learned over the years, Priscilla, when you can win control of the when you can win control of the narrative and you show somebody how they've been lied to and betrayed, they change how they vote. The key is for conservatives, we got to win the narrative. And that's something we're not doing a good job of.
Well, here's going to be my commercial for President Trump and not for Biden and Kamala Harris. Is my little commercial, because a lot of people, again, don't know Kamala Harris's track record as a DA in California for keeping Black folk incarcerated past their time so that
Yes.
California could receive free labor from Black men, and also intentionally hiding or not presenting evidence to exonerate a free man until she was forced to. And so I think it's really important that with this issue of criminal justice reform, that we take a look at the candidates that we're going to put in office that are going to do the things that we need to improve our community.
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents in there.
And I would add to that, you know, when I really think about this election coming up, this is really not about Trump versus Biden. This is about liberty versus socialism. This is about me maintaining my God-given rights and somebody who wants to take away my God-given rights. I'm talking about Biden and the Democrats. It's about.
Oh, stand by. We're gonna try to reconnect on this. We're gonna try to reconnect. Lost the connection. All right, we're gonna get KCarl back here to connect. Thanks for your patience. Hope you all are doing good. So while I'm waiting, here we go. Welcome back.
Okay. I don't know
Okay,
what happened.
that's all right. It's
I don't know what
technology.
happened.
Back.
No. That's what I call an SI. That's what I call satanic interference. The devil don't want us to get out. They don't want people to receive what we're saying. And I lost my thought. I'm having a senior moment. What was I talking
We're talking about that this is about liberty versus
Yeah, this is not about Trump versus Biden. This is about voting in a way where the candidate is going to either make sure we maintain our God-given rights for self-rule and liberty, or somebody who wants to take it away. We're somebody who wants to make sure that we become more prosperous as individuals and a nation, or somebody who wants to increase taxes, as he said he's going to do, to rob us of our birthright, to rob us of the chance to have economic prosperity. I think the answer is clear if people just vote their values. Like I said, it's not about a label. It's about what the future of your child, your grandchildren, and voting in a way that you're going to make sure that that continues. Because that's what this election is all about. It's not about the personalities. It's
I
about the
think
policies.
Yeah, I think this is great because the last point you make is about personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Touch on that real quick.
That really comes out of Second Thessalonians. If a man doesn't work, he shouldn't eat. When I think about Frederick Douglass, who was a slave for 20 years, and he escaped from slavery on his second attempt. The question: why did he escape? He not only did he want his God-given rights for liberty, but he wants to provide for himself, not having somebody else to provide for him. When you read Douglas's autobiographies, his first autobiography, he tells a story. He said one day my master walked up to me. He said, "Douglas, make no plans for the future. I'll take care of you." Douglas said, right then I started putting my plan together for an escape. Because Douglas said, if I allow him to do the things for me that I should be doing for myself, I'm gonna stay a slave. If we allow somebody to do for us what we should be doing for ourselves, pretty soon they're gonna make us their slave. That's why the writers of Frederick Douglass is so key, because Douglass writes, he gives us and leaves us this literary legacy explaining what he dealt with when it came to tyrants or somebody want to make him subordinate. When the slave master want to make him subordinate, the techniques of oppression used by the slave master is identical to the techniques of oppression used by socialists, Marxists, and the slave government.
I think that it's important for us to start really getting on board with this movement of being self-sufficient. I mean, yes, you mentioned this earlier. It's like these opportunities and taking advantage of these opportunities available to us to be free thinkers, and to take advantage of what life has to offer us and how we're protected by the Constitution. And it's important to elect constitutionalists, because that is what's going to help us get the justice, the social justice that our community is desperately asking for. But the answer is not in being taken care of, right?
Right, right. And when it comes to voting, this is what I noticed. A lot of people, when it comes to voting, especially in the Black community, they vote and they abdicate. They don't do anything else. That's it. No, what I've learned is by reading Douglas, you have to vote and agitate. You got to stay locked into the political process and get on these politicians' nerves. I don't care if it's R behind the name or a D, when they're not passing legislation that's in line with our values. While this is a representative government, so we got to vote and agitate, not vote and abdicate.
I would love to see a time when we start seeing a change in the statistics where Black fathers are back in the home. Like, our statistics are dismal. And when you have policies that incentivize Black fathers being absent from the home, where you incentivize that separation, that is destructive for our families. It hurts our kids and our future. And so I agree with you 100%. Like, I don't care if it's a D or an R, we need to hold our elected officials accountable for changing these policies that help us keep our families together, because that is the foundation and the structure of the home and our future and of America.
And you know what you said right there is so well articulated. And to me, what you just talked about, the policies in place that destroyed the Black family, those left-wing liberal policies, that right there is systemic racism. And they're the ones who's doing it.
And, I know I'm going to catch some heat, but that's all right, because I want to see all Americans prosper, and we need to address, the data and the statistics don't lie. And I think it's going to be up to us as a community to unite together under some sensible policies and legislation as a community, instead of fighting each other and destroying each other and calling people out of their names, because we know we've been called all kinds of things out of our names as Black.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Yeah, I'm not gonna be a victim. It's okay. I've been having actually amazing conversations, very civil conversations around these tools that you're talking about. So I know that I've kept you past your time. I really want you to talk about your where people can find you and your online schools, and like what advice would you give to Black folk or even white folk or Hispanic folk who want to learn more about what it means to be a Frederick Douglass Republican?
Visit my website. I'm gonna give you two websites. KCarlInc.com. It's KCarl Inc.com. KCarlinc.com. KCarlInc.com. I would say go there, sign up for the free, I said free now, free mini course where you get a chance to get a better understanding what I'm talking about in terms of the engagement strategy, how to talk to your friends and family members, how to talk to anyone regarding your conservative values, where you can win that narrative and have a conversation and not a confrontation, and find common ground with people. That's what it's all about. And then there's another website where you can read some of my blogs. That website is libertymessengerusa.org. That's a mouthful. libertymessengerusa.org. Again, libertymessengerusa.org. And of course, you can send me an email anytime. My business number, what is my business number? 205, I don't know my business number. 205. Let me look it up right quick. I don't know my business number.
Okay, while you're looking it up, KCarl is on Black Voices for Trump Advisory Board. He is an amazing spokesperson for liberty and for our community. And he is so articulate and represents our community so well to this administration. Give us your number.
Okay, 205, that's the area code, 312-9985. 205-312-9985.
And so KCarl is available for speaking engagements. I know, like in Colorado, we have different events for women and for the party. Like, bring him in for your Lincoln dinners. I mean, like KCarl, I had the first time I met him, it was over an hour speaking, and so engaging, so informative. You really helped educate all of us about just bringing us back to the foundation of our party, because like with the political climate, left and right, we've kind of really gotten far away from the center and our basics. So this is a really great way for those of us who love our country and want to preserve what we have in the foundations. This man and his book, okay, is a great book. It's an easy read. Okay, will help us work together as Americans to bring our country back to the foundations. I think it's really, really critical. So KCarl is getting dark over there.
Yeah, a little bit. They got the lights on.
Football practice.
Yeah.
Do we have a superstar in the making?
I'm trying to make him go in the way of golf. I play college football. I'm not feeling it anymore. So I'm trying to encourage him to play golf.
Okay, either way, he's a good athlete.
He's a good athlete.
Either way, KCarl, thank you so much. I know we could talk for a long, long time, and maybe there'll be a part 2 to this, but I just wanted to get in front of maybe voters who might still be undecided, who are hearing this and that, and maybe they'll do some more research before they cast their final vote. But liberty and freedom and Constitution and our future is on the line in this election, and I hope people take the time to learn more and
vote your values and vote your pocketbook.
All right.
But you gotta know what your values are now too. So that's another
right.
Yeah.
Well, I think you gave us a good foundation.
Say again now.
I think you gave us a good foundation of what to think about. So I appreciate
it. For me, yeah. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show. Nice seeing you again, and look forward to seeing you sometime soon.
You too. God bless you, KCarl. Be safe out there.
God bless you. Take care.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.